Hello, my name is Barbara Avila, and I am lucky enough to be working with Therapy Solutions for Kids and be offering this behavior series. And so welcome. You have signed up obviously for doing the online version. And so I'm going to be sharing my screen here, but I wanted to introduce myself real quickly. I'm a behavior and autism specialist here in the Portland metro area, and absolutely love what I do. I love meeting with parents and professionals and helping them really understand the latest in child development and especially around challenging behaviors. And so let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully that'll be smooth. Okay, so hopefully you can now see me up in the corner, and then welcome to Therapy Solutions for Kids Behavior with Barb. I'm gonna make it even, I'm gonna see if I can make it bigger. Yeah, I can. Okay, so here we go. So you're gonna get the full presentation this way. So there we go. So introduction, so I said who I am. I love working with families every day. I run Synergy Autism Center, and this is a collaboration with the wonderful Therapy Solutions for Kids, and especially Loretta Gimsey. And so what's happening is that I'm going to be doing 3 different sessions. This is session 1 that I'm going to be sharing with you today. How to get your kids to listen is the first one today. And then next month, I'll be talking about how to manage aggressive behaviors. And then in April, we're going to finish up with supporting through transitions. For each one, you're going to get 4 handouts. And so if hopefully along with this recording, you're also getting 4 handouts, and each handout has a description on the front side of the tip or tool. And the description tells you a little bit more about it, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about it tonight or in this video. And then on the back side, I've put recommendations for when you go and have a therapy session for your child, some things that you might consider observing in that session that your therapist does or your child's therapist does. So I'm going to use that opportunity to tell you that I'm also meeting with therapists, and so you might be watching this as a therapist even. So the beautiful collaboration with Therapy Solutions for Kids is that I get to tell you parents about something, the therapists get to model those things in their session. So they might highlight, spotlight things that you're learning in these sessions. They might say, hey, this is what I'm doing right now. But you can also ask them. So you can say, hey, I learned about this. Can you highlight that for me? So please, the idea is to get that dialogue going. So anyway, that's back to the handout. So the front side is the description of the tip or tool that we're talking about, or the strategy. The back side has recommendations for what to observe in your child's therapy session. And then the last part of the backside is recommendations for things that you can do at home to try out this tip or tool or this strategy. Okay, so across all the handouts, you're going to get 4 per session, and each handout will have these elements to it. Okay, so I'm going to go on. Each session is going to cover time to introduce yourselves. So that would be when I'm doing it live, introducing yourselves to each other. So if you are watching this with anybody else, you can take the time to do that. But in the future, it's going to be a little bit of time to reflect on homework from the last session. Okay, so if you are watching these like this, just make sure that you do a little bit of review on your own next session about what you've tried out. Okay, and you're more than welcome to send emails to me with questions or whatever in between. And then each session, so that's how we'll start each session. The next part is going to be the new tip or tool that is going to hopefully optimally guide your child that you can learn, and then practice with it. So going a little bit deeper, I try and do some role playing. I give examples. In a short amount of time, I do usually 1 per strategies or tip or tool. So examples of using those in action. And then again, the idea is for being able to observe yourself, but then also your child's therapist or anybody else that you want to watch with your child, and then homework to try at home. Okay, so each session is going to cover those things. Each session live. We'll start promptly at 4 to 5:30, is recorded like this one if you're not able to join. I'm going to be doing them like this because I think that that's going to be cleaner for everybody instead of trying to watch when I'm, taking breaks and stuff to talk with people in the actual session. So we're not recording live anymore. We will not be taking breaks during the session. So of course, if you're watching this at home, you can start and stop it as you need to, whatever works for you. So I'm going to dive in to the presentation now. So I get really excited about the whole idea that parents, you caregivers, have such an amazing, beautiful ability to actually change the trajectory of your child's brain. And I know that sounds big, and there's lots of things that are set for kids from their genetics and things like that. Absolutely. But we also, as parents, because we are learning so much more about the brain, the fact that how we interact with kids or interact with each other changes our brains. And so through the activities that you provide to kids, you can, or your children, you can actually change the way they think about things. Kind of cool. So Donald Hebb, or somebody in the interpersonal neurobiology realm, so this, what I was mentioning, that's kind of the study of how we can affect each other through our activities and our social. Anyway, they have this little saying that I just love of neurons that fire together, wire together. So the whole idea that, yep, if you get a kid thinking about something and you're firing those neurons off for them and with them, you are actually changing connections in the brain. Pretty cool. So tip 1, very first one for today. If you don't do anything else in the entire behavior series, this is the most important one. Attitude is everything. By calming your own system, you're able to calm your child's system. That's what we've learned actually from that interpersonal neurobiology. By calming your own system, you can calm your child's system too. Pretty amazing. So it is proven that our actions and reactions can affect our children's development, literally creating new connections. And I think I need to move my little thing here, that centering yourself centers your child. So I love that picture, that they both look so happy. So so this sounds stressful, so I don't, because like, oh wait, I have to be happy all the time. Well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying to just be mindful that taking care of yourself is taking care of your child. So I'm sure you've heard that a million times over, and I'm going to say it again, and we're going to explore it for a few minutes. But taking care of yourself is taking care of your child. So you cannot, I want you to think about it this way. So I am a fan of Dr. Dan Siegel and Dr. Tina Bryson's work. They have a new book that's called The Power of Showing Up that I highly recommend. They talk about you as a parent being the snug harbor for your child, especially if they're in crisis mode or they need a kind of a launching pad, right? So that you can be that snug harbor for them to kind of come and go from as they need to. And that's our goal, right? Is that you're able to be a comfort for a child, but then also let them go, etc. Well, you can't be that if you personally are in crisis mode, because if your child is needing to turn towards you because they're stressed or they're overwhelmed or whatever, and you are also a source of that stress and overwhelm, that's not going to work. Their brains are not going to make sense of that actually in a way that uses attachment science. And if you want more on that, read The Power of Showing Up. It's pretty amazing. But the message here is you can't be your child's snug harbor. You can't be that for them if you personally are in crisis mode. So here I did a little visual just of setting events. That's what I like to call them. It's a lot of people in the behavior realm call them setting events. What are the things that set you up to just be triggered by anything and you kind of go over that edge and into stress? Well, the ones on the left here on the screen are things that kids are commonly dealing with, especially ones who have challenging behavior. So they might have emotions that they can't make sense of. They're tense. There's tension in the world, in their lives, in their homes. Okay, so just even people fighting around them, or stress levels. So kids can read parents' stress levels faster than you can even open your mouth. It's pretty amazing. You probably already know that, but I'm just going to say it again. So if you're tense, you're going to automatically set your kid into a stress mode. So emotions, tension that they're experiencing, sensory sensitivities. If you talk with adults on the autism spectrum, for example, they talk about how sensory information can come all at the same time. That all these different inputs are coming at the same time, and it's really hard to prioritize, and it's just a lot of noise if you think about it, where that would be really stressful. Auditory processing is usually not, if you're coming to this group, you probably have a child that has a struggle with understanding auditory information, so verbal information only. And so that they might get overwhelmed by it, or just not be able to filter it out in the same way. They may have slower processing. They may just be a kid, and they're being a kid, you have a lot of like trial and error that can be stressful. That the whole experience can just feel like chaos that then can just put you into fight or flight. Okay, so that's the child. On the other hand, you, the parent, you may also have tons of emotions going on. There's other things in your life going on besides parenting. You may be experiencing tension in your workplace. You may be experiencing tension with your partner. You may be ignoring your self-care. You may have multiple kids that you're trying to manage and parent the best way that you can. You may be lacking sleep and just simply being a parent. All of these things plus, right? You also get in moments of experiencing chaos. And that's what I'm talking about, is if you're in stress mode, if you're in that space, you can't be kind of that calm, snug harbor for your child. So I said this a minute ago, children can feel your stress and tension. Your own self-care is not only extra, but I want you to really think of it as being of critical importance. It is essential. Children need guides who are calm and confident, that you exude that air of, I know what I'm doing, even if you don't all the time, because I know I'm a parent too. You don't always know what you're doing, but imagine if you were lost and you look to somebody and you really, they said they had a sign that said they're a guide and they know, you know, et cetera, but you asked them like, how do I get from here to there? And they were like, I don't know, and felt like nervous about it and weren't a calm, confident guide. You wouldn't have a lot of faith in that person, and then you'd be more stressed. Okay, so same idea. That air of confidence is what we're going for. It doesn't mean you have to be dictatorship, right, in your household. It just means calm and confident. So if you are guiding your child, you can do that in a very kind, loving way, but also in a very confident way that you know what you're doing. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I just want to really focus on the idea of taking care of yourself so that you can be calm and confident. So there's two ways that I think about taking care of yourself. So there's the, you know, one that you hear all the time of overall well-being. So this is when people say, oh yeah, I know, I need to take care of myself. I take a bath every once in a while by myself with a glass of wine or whatever. Well, that's great. And that's kind of overall well-being. If you need things like that, if you need a regular exercise, I need caffeine daily. My cup of coffee is very important to me in the morning. I need to be able to see the ocean on a regular basis. Just it's never enough, but you know, at least a couple times a year for my overall well-being. So what I'd like, and then the second part of that, I'll just say it now, is that not only kind of overall those things that we often talk about in, and you've probably been urged to do, but I also want you to really think about things that you can do for yourself, calming techniques in the moment. And when I say in the moment, I mean in the moment of, it might be with your spouse, it may be with at work, it may be in traffic, it may be with your child. If your child is exhibiting challenging behaviors or behaviors that just make you really concerned for themselves, for others, etc., that moment is what I'm talking about, that you're going to need strategies to calm your own system and not get triggered so that you can be that calm, confident guide. So next I'm going to have you, hopefully you've printed this out. It's called the sun diagram, and it looks like this. Hopefully I can show it. Okay, so it's a sun diagram, blank sun diagram. And I want you to print out 2. So pause and print out 2 if you need to, or pause and go get one from your child's therapist if you're watching it during therapy, etc., whatever. These will be on hand for you. I also want to say that I use these for a lot of different things, but it's also a little side note. It's great to use with kids for making choices. If you want them to make better choices for when they're stressed, or bored. This is a good one. Kids get bored, so they don't know what to do with themselves. They're home, it's after school, they've not allowed to have screen time maybe, but I'm so bored. So you can put bored in the middle, or you can have a face that just looks bored. And then each of the sun rays, you can write or draw a picture. If your child isn't reading yet, you can draw a picture, or even put a photo of it on here for what the options are. And sometimes that really, really helps putting options in visual form. So you can use it for bored, you can use it when you're stressed, you can use it for what choices there are for dinner tonight. You can use it for lots of different things, but it makes it really nice and visually clear. Anyway, so that's a little side note, but right now what I want you to use it for is for yourself. So I'm going to have you do one that in the center, you write something like my overall well-being, or things that keep me sane, or things that make me feel at my best. So whatever you want to write in the middle, you could draw a picture if you wanted to, you could draw a smiley face, whatever, I don't care, this is for you. And then on the rays, I want you to write the things that you know keep you at your best. So I mentioned a few for me. You would write something like that. So my daily coffee, exercise, sleep. Try and be a little more specific if you can with that. So with sleep, how much sleep do you need? Are you somebody who just needs, like, I need 7 to 8 hours a night? So that's what I would write. And I have to work really hard at that. But I know that if I don't, I'm not at my best. So exercise. Well, of course, everybody knows exercise is important, but what keeps you at your best? What kind of exercise? How much? That kind of thing. So be as specific as you can. Take your time. That's the nice thing about doing it online, is that you can pause and take as long as you want. The second sun diagram that I want you to fill out is that in the middle, you're going to write something like in the moment, when you're starting to get stressed. And this is where you're going to put things that I'm sure you've heard, because they're cross media, etc., for mindfulness and keeping you safe and all of that, and calm. But things like deep breathing. So these are mine. When I am stressed and I'm in the moment and I'm feeling like my whole system is kind of going over in trigger alert, I make sure to ground my feet. So I step kind of, I have my feet a little bit wider. I may bend my knees a little bit so that I'm ready if I need to, because sometimes I'm in situations with kids with pretty significant behaviors. And so I need to keep everybody safe. I need to keep myself safe. But at the same time, I'm doing deep breathing, because my heart starts to go up. My heart rate starts to go up. So I'm doing some really deep breathing and calming my own system while I'm being hypervigilant to make sure the safety is first and foremost. We will talk next time about what to do in the middle of when a child is being aggressive. So there's a little preview for you. Anyway, so pause, write down those for yourself, and then when you're ready, start us up again. All right, so I'm going to go on. This is the back side of your handout, and this is what I want you to try and observe your therapist doing, and they know that you're going to be watching for these things. So they're on the back of your handout. So if you can't see it totally on the screen, then just refer to your handout. So you're going to notice your child's therapists air of confidence, even just when they walk your child back to their therapy room. Okay, they're probably not going to be saying, oh, do you want to come with me? Is that okay? What do you want to do today? Do da, 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 da. They're probably not going to be using a whole lot of words, which we're going to talk about in a minute. They're going to be guiding your child pretty confidently back, not forcing, that's not at all what I'm saying, but confidently exuding this calm confidence. Once the therapy has started, then I want you to observe how they guide slowly and deliberately. They're usually not rushed. If they are, there's something else going on. You can mention it to them now. But I do want you to think about how are they guiding slowly and deliberately, and then also, of course, how does your child respond to that? So that's another part of that. So then the last one on there, or the very last part is, you can write these down, the 3 things that you notice that provide the calm and confidence. But the third thing to watch for is, how do you sense that the therapist is truly in the moment with your child, and what about their body language exhibits that message? So it may be things I haven't even said. So there might be something else that they do that you notice that you're like, oh, wow, I could do that. And that really gives the message that they're in the moment with the child. And that really makes a difference for your child in particular, you might notice. Okay, then the next part of the handout that I'd also like for you to consider is experimenting with at home. So I want you to create a self-care plan for stressful moments. So that in the moment one, yes, I would love for you to do a self-care plan for the overall, but we don't do the second part as much. So I'm going to make that more specifically what the homework is. So I want you to think about strategies that can move you from being in this fight or flight mode, where your heart is racing, your breathing is increased, into that more relaxed and open mode. On the handout, I also have some recommendations for websites that you might consider checking out. One is Dan Siegel's work. He has a lot around mindfulness and awareness and strategies, if you go online for that. And then the other one is just life coaches often talk about this stuff, and they talk about life balance. And so you might be able to find some other things depending on your interest level that you can add to this. But choose 3 strategies that for in the moment that you want to try when you're starting to feel escalated. Okay, and then I want you to try and incorporate them into your daily routine, and I'll be asking about them again next time. We're going to move on to tip number 2. So this is one I get very excited about, and it is allowing CTU to happen. Now, what is CTU? CTU is curiosity to you. One of the things that makes me very sad is that when kids with sensory issues, they're getting so bombarded and overwhelmed from a sensory standpoint that they are in safety mode a lot of the time. They're in fight or flight, and I'm sorry about my email popping up. They're in fight or flight mode a lot of the time, and it makes it so they cannot be curious about the world around them, let alone be curious about you, which then also means they're not going to be able to learn from you effectively. They're not going to learn from you. They're not going to learn from their peers. They're not going to be learning all the wonderful things that we want to teach them. They're going to be trying to just make sure that their body and their system is in a state of homeostasis, which means that they're going to be trying for some of the more predictable things. They're going to get stuck on things because it's self-preservation. Okay, so this is one way that you can help a child make that curiosity to you come alive, by respecting their sensory systems and respecting the fact that they can do this. They just need an opportunity to shift their attention. And I'm going to talk about that here. Oops. Okay. So when I'm talking about curiosity to you, I'm talking about this kind of moment that you can see on the screen now, where a child is looking at you or the therapist or a caregiver, a peer, where they're not looking to the object, they're looking at you, and they're curious. What do you think about what I'm looking at? Or what do you think about this? What do you think is funny? What do you think is scary? What do you think is whatever? So or what elaborations do you have for this? How can I make this more fun? There's so much in that moment that just can explode from this very moment of curiosity to you, the CTU. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. Yes, this looks like eye contact, and it is. Eye contact is just one way that kids can indicate that they are curious about you. There are lots of other ways. When a child leans into you when you're doing something and they're obviously kind of thinking about you, that's what I'm talking about too. If they gesture towards you, whatever, I don't want you to get stuck on eye gaze or eye contact. Eye contact, if you force it, can actually be sensory overwhelming, which then is the opposite of what we want to do. We actually want to bring down the sensory overwhelm so that curiosity can happen. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, now ways to create moments. You know what, I feel like I missed one. Oh, I did. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this one really quickly. So this is also on your handout. So there's something called joint attention that is typical in development for everyone. Some of the research in autism demonstrates that joint attention is something that is a struggle for little kids and stays, the longitudinal studies show that that is what stays the same all the way into adulthood. So this is a way that I think that we can target this very specifically and give that and make that whole joint attention and that curiosity come to life. All right. So what is joint attention? So joint attention is when the guide, the teacher, the parent, whoever is looking to the child. The guide is looking to the child or person, so of any age. So that's the arrow going that way. And then the guide is also referencing an object or a topic, okay? So at the same time that the child is also referencing the guide and referencing the object. So it's this triangle, and that's called joint attention. But the interesting thing is that whenever you look, I do a lot of research on this, and a lot of the research talks about targeting joint attention where the guide is looking to the child and is looking at the object, but forgetting the fact that the most important piece is actually that the child is looking back at the adult or their guide for all that beautiful stuff that we need kids to be looking to us for. So what do you think about this? Is it something frightening? Social referencing. Should I cross the street? Is it safe for me to do so? All of that is in that curiosity to you within joint attention. And that happens very, very early in development. So if you think about a very young child, a baby, you might hold them in your lap and have them facing you, and that you just have this nice back and forth gazing. Now, if you look at this, that's just the top part. The parent or the guide is looking to the child is looking at the parent. So that's developmentally before you see the object or topic come in, okay? So if you brought, when a very young babies, if you brought an object in, they wouldn't be interested in it because they're interested in faces, they're interested in you. So that's what I'm talking about developmentally, that happens first. And then the object comes in and becomes a part of that conversation, maybe without words yet. Okay, so that joint attention, that nice conversation, that nice back and forth that happens regarding that object or topic. Okay, so what happens in autism and with kids with sensory processing needs is that we tend to come in with the object or topic and as more important than we are. So I'm going to give you a little example, and I'm trying to think of something that I have. Okay, well, I'm going to use my phone. Isn't that horrible? So, okay, so I could say to you, so I'm the guide, you're the child, and I could say, oh, look at my phone. Isn't that cool? I have some stuff I want to show you on it. So I've put the object out front, and it is the most important thing. So you are highlighting, if you were to do that, you would be highlighting the object or topic being way more important than you. Watch how subtle and small it can be. I could do this. Hey, wait for attention to shift. That's called curiosity to you, C to you. I wait for the attention shift. And then I bring in the joint attention part and I say, oh, I have something to show you. And the child looks or leans in. And then you say, I have this cool phone to show you. Isn't that neat? So you have made yourself be more important than the object in that moment. I had a dad once tell me that he was looking forward to, early when we started in this, he said, I'm looking forward to being more important than the object. And it was a child who had a specific object that they were very attached to. And I remember the day so well when he said, Barb, I think I'm more important than the object. And he had tears in his eyes. It was so awesome. So that's what we're going for, is that you are more important than the object, because we need your child to be curious about you, curious about your impressions about things, etc. You can't make it happen. You can't make a child be curious. You can't say, look at me, and have a child be curious. They're going to not be curious. They're going to be stressed about just being compliant to look at you. But you can decrease the sensory around them, allow them to shift their attention to you, and allow that to happen before you start talking, before you offer something, before you give a direction. Okay, so I call that C to you before talking. And I have a YouTube video on it and things like that if you would like more information on it. Okay, now I'm going to go to ways to create moments of CTU. So sometimes kids, if you just sit down next to them, they go, why are you sitting down next to me? And they are curious right away. Other kids might need a little help with that. And so sometimes sitting down next to or in front of or whatever isn't enough. And so sometimes you have to use touch. Gentle but firm touch, which you're going to talk about in a few minutes, is one way. And then other ways that you can kind of highlight yourself is you might go, I have something to show you. So that you stand out from the rest of the sensory information coming in. Just by whispering, you stand out because you're quieter, or getting loud. But please don't be doing this when you're feeling angry. So just being loud on purpose. Starting to fall over as you wait, or something else out of character for you. Simply sitting next to them without talking yet sometimes can be it, just sitting and waiting. Getting in close, hiding. So kind of like what I was just talking about, is that you might not show the object first, just allowing the curiosity to shift to you first and then showing it. Okay, so those are just some ideas. There's lots of other ones. So again, eye contact is one way that kids will demonstrate that they're curious about you, but it isn't always. So sometimes laughing, sometimes leaning in can be a way. Sometimes moving and just enjoying can be it, but sometimes a word. So I'm imagining in this scenario, so I want you to think about this for a second. I love this picture, super cute. So imagine both the parents could just pick the kids up and then be swinging it or doing whatever they're going to do. But then that doesn't allow the child to have their attention. You don't know what they're attending to at that point. They could be attending to the fact that they sat on a rock and it doesn't feel very good. And then all of a sudden they're being picked up and then they've got double sensory, right? So if you wait for them to settle themselves, be like, well, what's going to happen now that I'm in here? They've picked up the side, so what's going to happen? And if they look to you, lean, like I can imagine her leaning back into dad or something like that, that indicates I'm ready for something else to happen. I'm curious. What is going to happen? I don't know. So that's what I'm talking about. All right. So I do step this out for you. Of how to not only create CTU moments, but then also have a little bit of the back and forth with your child. So step one is to step back and really assess the situation. If you're in crisis, or if your child's in crisis, meaning scattered, anxious, tense, whatever, it is not the time to do this. It is the time to focus on self-care or quieting the environment, trying to ensure a calm, trusting state. Step two, you're going to calm yourself. So you've decided, yes, we're in the right space. You're going to calm yourself before sharing the same space. things that we talked about a few minutes ago of breathing, potentially calming your own body, sitting down, remaining clear, and mindful, meaning your mind is full of what you're going to be practicing, not mindful in necessarily kind of the way that you sometimes hear it in society today or social media. So step 3, I want you to try this out. I want you to sit next to and touch your child. If they're aversive to touch, just sit next to them. I don't need you to worry about that right now, but just allow their attention to shift to you, slowing yourself down enough so that you can notice just those little shifts of attention to you. Okay? So, and allowing them actually also to just notice your presence. So it might just take time. So just count in your head, even count to 45. Sit down, count to 45. Your child may do it without having to do touch or anything else. They may just go, why are you sitting here? But it might just take some processing time. Allow your child to feel safe, secure, and curious before you offer anything. So the first thing is just that curiosity. And if that is met with any fear or apprehension or avoidance, that's where you're going to stay. Don't keep going. Just work on curiosity to you. You can just, if you'd like to, you can just smile. You can, not when they're stressed, obviously, but if it just sitting near is stressful for your child, you might move a little bit away, and then they may just have the habit that you're going to come and ask them to do something. And so this is just that you just want to sit near and allow that curiosity to come to life rather than the fear response. Hope that helps. Okay, step 4, if they do respond well to the curiosity to you and they're calm and they're relaxed, then you can start offering little tiny, what I call bids or little offers to engage with you. So you can offer these in very non-threatening manner. So again, I'm talking about a kid who's probably pretty not super interactive. So I'm kind of going to the extreme. So you might have to jump in at different places, but just experiment, okay? So you may you may imitate your child's actions. You may offer a piece from a puzzle that you want to do. You may even just put your hand out. Those are all bids, okay? Meaning it's an offer for your child to then go, oh, I know how to respond, or I can respond in my own unique way. It's not saying, give me that, or do this, or do that. It's nonverbal bids whenever possible, okay? Because you want the child to feel like they have their own, what's called personal agency. They have the choice and they to figure out how they can affect you and act in a contingent manner to you. So you are not trying to get them to do anything in particular at this point. You're just offering. If they don't take your bid, it's okay. You're offering moments to pique your child's curiosity. So what you're going to be watching for in your sessions is during therapy sessions, I want you to specifically look for or notice times that your therapist waits for your child's attention to shift before talking or guiding or having them do anything. And I want you to look for how they ensure that your child's attention and curiosity is on them. So they might use some different strategies that you might like. Do they whisper? Do they talk loud at certain points? Are they silly? You might find ones that you would like to adopt for yourself. Or you may learn ones that you know don't work and that you don't want to do at home. So I want you to write down 3 moments that you observe CTU within your child's session. Now, today I talked with the therapist about this too, and something that came up that I want to make sure to also bring into this is that CTU is not just in the beginning of an activity. It also should be frequently within an activity. So imagine that joint attention again. You're not going to just have joint attention to start your activity. There are going to be moments where joint attention could be super helpful throughout the activity. So when a child gets stuck and they're really focused on something and trying to problem solve something, you have a choice to either solve it or allow them to just get frustrated because they're staring at this and they don't know how. But joint attention in that moment would be so awesome for them to go, I don't know, what do you think about this? Can you help me with this? I have so many kids who have that goal on their IEP plans and stuff like that that ask for help. This is a seed, the root of that asking for help is that curiosity to you. They have to be curious whether you can help them. All right, so at the beginning, yes, great, CTU, but do it periodically throughout activities with your child. So that's going to lead me to experimenting at home. Oh, sorry, that yellow is probably hard to read. I want you to practice at least 10 minutes a day. So I'm going to make it manageable for you by just 10 minutes a day at first. Because if you think about it, you're going to have to be trying to do this all the time. You're going to get overwhelmed and you're not going to do it. I want you to just choose 10 minutes per day that you're going to practice CTU to ensure kind of that trust and relaxed engagement that you saw the steps. Then next, you can practice it all the time and everywhere. You can allow a child's attention to shift to you with curiosity, providing any, before offering any bid for engagement. And the other piece that I want to mention is that bids should be not just for when you want something. They actually, I would love for you to start with ones that are combined with a smile or a loving squeeze, just to say I love you, just because you want to connect. Okay, so I don't want the CTU to be associated with, oh, it's time for bed, it's time for this, it's time for that. Things that they're not going to be real curious about. They're going to learn that, oh, when mom sits down next to me or dad sits down next to me and waits for my attention, it's because they want to tell me something that I'm not going to want to hear, right? So make sure that you are front loading with some really nice bids for just connecting and letting them know that they're cool, awesome kids. Okay, tip number 3 is, and I'm going to try and see if I can tell the time. No, I can't. How long we are in. Okay, so tip number 3 is connect through body language. So I'm often talking about visual supports for kids with autism and with sensory needs. This is very similar, but I'm getting really specific on this one because I want you to think about how your body language can actually be visual support for what you say or do as well. It's going to help your kids listen to you better if you have your body language matching what you're saying. So children who have auditory processing challenges are working much harder than the rest of us. And my hat is off to kids who have auditory processing needs or people. It just seems like it would be very overwhelming to have so much information coming in all at the same time and have trouble prioritizing and listening, which is also then going to make it harder to produce speech. There's some research out there that I mentioned in the CTU handout that some people on the autism spectrum, they're actually finding they can see it even as early as 6 months, have the auditory and the visual information are not necessarily in sync, especially for social information. So that could just make life so confusing. So anyway, bottom line is, so their auditory information is not going to be there for their strongest suit. So they're going to be looking for visual information and visual cues to help them understand the world around them. Keep doing that, sorry. So, okay, your body language is a visual that they're going to be looking for. So this isn't a fun picture, sorry, but you can see all the types of body language. So the fact that he has a facial expression of anger, the fact that he is holding both of the shoulders of the child, he's standing above the child rather than below. Which we're learning so much more, speaking of body language, we're learning a lot more about our brains and how we interact with each other can really, like I said earlier, change your brain and how you're reacting to things. So the back and forth. So in this picture, this body positioning of the parent and the child is putting the child, without him even thinking about it, he doesn't even have to cognitively be aware of this, puts his child into fight or flight mode, because we're all animals, right? Humans are animals. And so it is a natural instinct. If somebody comes up above over you in that kind of stance, your brain puts you into fight or flight mode automatically. Okay. So I love that Tina Bryson and Dan Siegel talk about this in their latest book, The Power of Showing Up. But they talk about how if you get at eye level or below, you automatically put your child into a state that they know from sensory system from a very basic level, they know you are not a threat. So very important to think about it. And when you start to feel stressed, the cool thing is that just by sitting down, you calm your own system, and at the same time, you are calming your child's system. So that's often recommendation number one when you're thinking about body language, when you're thinking about, and you might go back and put it on your sun diagram, sit down. When you start feeling stressed, sitting down is going to help your own system calm. It's very hard to be stressed when you are sitting down or as stressed. So anyway, your body language. So sitting and standing, just talked about, above and below eye level, proximity for connection. So just making sure that you're thinking about the fact that kids with sensory needs, if they have everything coming in at the same time, or they have auditory processing needs, etc., that you're probably going to need to be in close to have a connection with them. Yelling from across the house or yelling from across the room, trying to talk across the room is not going to work as well. Your child is not going to be able to hear you as well as if you wait to say it, you come over close, you allow that curiosity to you, and then you talk. So, and then being slow and deliberate instead of fast and chaotic, of course, is also going to help your child listen better to your words. So on the flip side of this, so that's your body language. I want you to now think about how we need to think about our child's body language. Oftentimes kids on the autism spectrum and other communication needs, sometimes their words don't necessarily match exactly what they're trying to communicate. So an extreme case is kids who will take movie lines, for example, to and bring it into different situations. I have one kiddo that I just adore, and he would come in to my office. He's a little bit older than I think a lot of your kids are, but he would say, "What does it take to get out of this place?" And it was a movie line, but his whole body language was saying, "I want to join you, I'm coming in." He would come in and sit down, but he was saying that. And so I thought long and hard about it, like, what is he trying to communicate? Because his body language is not matching. I mean, he's not running out the door, etc. So what I figured out was that he just wanted to know how long the session was going to be. What time did it start? What time did it end? That has completely eliminated that question. So every time I meet with him now, I say, okay, we're starting at this time. We're going to be done in 1 hour, which means we'll be done at this time. And then he's totally fine. And so that was what he was asking. So long story short, I just want to say that just make sure that you are looking at your child's body language more than you're actually listening to their words. We get into, as parents, being so reactive to words that I really want you to think about taking a step back. And even if your child comes at you with something that triggers you, create a pause in that moment and think about, is that really what they're trying to communicate? Or are they just trying to interact with me? And they just are checking out what I'm doing, but they're asking me for something they've asked me 6 times already within the last hour, those kinds of things. Okay? So touch. So in the live session, I had people do this. And so if there's any way that you can find somebody that you can do this with right now, that would be super awesome. I want you to go to somebody and tap them on the shoulder like this, because that's like a nagging kind of touch, okay? You want something. I want you to think about that, as a kind of general. So you might not do this to your child, but there might be other ways that you're only touching them when you want something. You're only touching them when you're telling them they're doing something wrong, or it's time to transition or whatever. The alternative is, what I would love for you to do, find somebody, is to just do that same, in that same area on your shoulder, of have somebody just do a firm hand touch on your shoulder. It feels so much more comforting. It feels supportive. It feels like they're there with you, rather than, oh, you need to do something. Okay, so I want you to experiment with what your child might feel best with. Some kids really don't love touch at all, but I want to challenge that and make sure that you experiment with or think about whether your child has formed that habit because you only touch them when they when you need something or want something. Okay, so the top one is your child may, on the screen, your child may prefer firm or soft touch. Your child doesn't necessarily, is never going to prefer nagging touch, never going to prefer when you want something. So the other side is something that's comforting, you want to connect. So make sure that you're kind of experimenting with all of those, okay? So when you observe your child's therapist, I want you to focus your attention on when and where and how your therapist is touching your child. And some therapists may actually ask you, is it okay if I touch your child on the shoulders, on the arms, etc.? I am not advocating for inappropriate touch, so I just want to make sure that you know that I'm very deliberately asking for people to experiment with safe touch that is safe for the child, that's safe for you as the parent, etc. Your therapist may also deliberately not touch your child, and I think if that is the case, that you should ask why. There may be very good reasons. And then I want you to write 3 things that you notice about how your child uses, how your child's therapist uses touch with your child that works or doesn't work. Just what do you notice? All right, experimenting at home. Again, I don't want you to feel like you have to practice all day, all the time at first. So I want you to just consider choosing an hour that you can have be relatively free of distractions. I know that is like a joke in some lives to think about having fewer distractions, but as much as you can manage to bring down distractions, and just be aware of how you currently use touch, and think about, have you developed some habits that when you touch your child, and what are those habits, and can you break some of those, can you make new habits, etc. Then choose another similar hour that you deliberately use touch, and think about using CTU, so letting their attention to shift to you before saying something endearing. I like that shirt, I love you, I care about you, something like that, those positives. So combining the CTU and the touch. Sometimes children get very much in their heads and they get very focused on something. And so sometimes the touch can actually have a little bit of an addition that I'm going to share with you that's called tension. So it's really hard for me to do it without somebody else here. If there was somebody next to me, I'd be doing it that way. So is to put your hand on the child's shoulder, and if you don't get any response at all, like no curiosity whatsoever to you, you can do a little bit of tension. I'm not saying totally turn the child towards you, but I'm saying just a little bit of pressure and tension, just to provide a little bit of like, hey, I'm here, and I'm it's start to that bid sort of that I'm talking about. It's a bid for, I'm here and I'd love for you to be curious about me. So that's just a little addition that you might have to do. I wanted to mention that. Yeah, so what did you, and then, take a little bit of time to reflect. What did you notice about your child when you did that? What worked, what didn't? Practice touch across settings and throughout your day. Aim to offer at least 5 authentic sentiments in this manner throughout the day. So first, just an hour, then throughout your day. All right, the last tip number 4, stop talking so much. Aren't you ready for me to do some stop talking too? So stop talking so much. This is a super, super common one that I tell parents all the time. We get so chatty. We want to fill the silence. We don't give enough processing time to each other, to kids, etc. We talk too much. So remember that neurons that fire together, wire together. I want you to think about that. If you are doing all the talking, you're also doing all the thinking for your child. You are not helping them be the one to put those connections together and be able to make decisions for themselves. Okay, hold that thought for a second. So it is up to you to, number 1, share information with them, but not overwhelm them. So again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Sorry. If you have somebody, and I think you should assume this for anybody, that they have information coming in, that's the lights, the sound, the breeze, the everything, just their emotions, their internal, their hunger, etc. All that's coming in and they're kind of feeling chaotic. If you are talking too much, you're just adding to it. You're not actually going to have them hear you. They're not going to be able to listen to you. Okay, so just simply by talking less, and I'm going to give you 2 things to think about. Talking less is the first one for you to do. You can reduce your words. So shorten your sentences. Consider using more sound effects. Use your body language and gestures, and allow processing time. So shortening your sentences. If a child is nonverbal completely, then you're going to actually just use sound effects or maybe one-word sentences or one-word phrases, whatever you want to say, single words, to communicate with that child. If you're using all this language, I will guarantee you that they cannot yet process all of that language. It's not to dumb it down, it's just to simplify the environment and the sensory input so they can hear you better. And then language development can happen more successfully. So shorten your sentences to better match theirs. Kind of along those lines is if you do have a talker, only talk as much as they do. I want you to again think about the fact that if you're doing all the talking, you're doing all the thinking. Our goal, my goal for all kids, is for them to become the best thinkers that they can be in the future, be able to be decision makers for themselves, for other people, for whatever. So the more that you can give, the only way, I read this the other day, the only way that you can help a child become a better decision maker is to help them have opportunities to make decisions, okay? So through your words, just reducing your words, you can do that. So the second part, so first just reduce what you're saying so you're kind of bringing the sensory environment down to give them a better chance to be able to hear. Then the second part is make statements, not directives. What I mean by that is that you can say something like, put that down, and you're pointing at it. They can just comply and put it down, or they can say no, but there's not a whole lot of thinking involved in that. But if you say something like, hey, let's put these over here, then they might have to say, oh, you have one too? Put what over where? So you leave it to be a little bit more open-ended. They have to do a little bit more thinking to be able to make a decision as to what their action is. That feels so much better than being, just having to be compliant or not. Another direct question might be, what color is this? You're looking at a book. What color is this? What word does it say? What's that? Those are going to get a very compliant or non-compliant answer rather than the child thinking about something. If you say, that's really pretty, then they might look to you. There's that joint attention, the curiosity to you, wondering what you're looking at. And then you're able to say, that's a really pretty tree, or whatever it is. So just through making statements, not directives, you can help a child become a better thinker. Saying, come here and put this away makes them only be able to come to you, put that away. If you say, I need your help, they have to look around and get all that awesome practice with taking in the environment. What do you need help with? And then be able to take their part. So again, back to that personal agency, they get to feel this control over their lives that just a simple directive is not going to give them. Okay, they're going to be able to hear you better if they feel a sense of control and personal agency over their lives. So what to observe when you're in therapy. So when your child's in therapy, you're going to watch for the first part, the first bullet point here is you're going to be watching for the amount and frequency of words that your therapist uses. So when they walk in, what do they say, if anything? How much does your therapist show versus say? When your therapist talks, what is their average sentence length? Does it match your child's sentence length? And then the second part of that is really paying attention to whether they're using more statements or directives, the kind of the quality of what they say. So listen to that content. And then consider writing a few down and what your child said afterwards. And if there was a little bit of a back and forth, that'll be really cool to observe as well. Okay, so experimenting at home with making statements versus directives and reducing your words. So very similar to what I said before. Don't feel like you have to try this all day, every day. I want you to just choose 20 minutes per day to practice this. It's just like learning a new language, because you're going to go home and you go, oh my God, I talk so much. Or you're going to say, oh my gosh, I do directives all the time. So it is a matter of learning, kind of observing yourself, giving yourself the space and time of just 20 minutes a day to practice like a new language. So significantly reduce your amount of verbal speech. You can celebrate all the other wonderful ways to communicate. And you can use words if you absolutely have to. So if your child gets upset, for example, when you start to be more quiet, it's okay to talk again for a little while and then drop back into not using as many words. The idea is not to stress out your child. The idea is to give them other opportunities, which they'll become more and more comfortable with as you do too. So another way to do this is even to schedule 10 minutes per day to go completely nonverbal in your home. A lot of families find that really, really fun and actually want even longer. If you have more kids in the home, sometimes that's fun. But again, same thing. It's not to stress anybody out. If it doesn't work and you can only do 3 minutes, that's fine. Work up to 10 minutes, okay? The other part to practice is use statements rather than directives. You can practice 20 minutes per day. So again, you can choose how long. I'm just making a recommendation to practice just one specific time per day and making statements. Many people find it really helpful to, when they get stuck in making, like, what am I supposed to say? Starting your sentence out with, I wonder, often helps. So you're like, okay, I need to get my kid out the door. I want to practice a statement. What do I say? I wonder where your shoes are. That automatically puts your child into a state of like, I don't know where my shoes are. Maybe they're by the door. I'll go get them. Why is he asking about my shoes? Oh, probably because it's time to put them on. You get it. So take your time, allow yourself to try things out. You're not going to be perfect. It might be a little frustrating, but you'll get better at it, and so will your child, in being able to be more of a strong thinker and be able to listen to you better. So that's it for experimenting, and that's my last slide. So I want to thank you, and the next time that we meet, the next session that I will also videotape, will be about aggressive behavior. And so we will be talking about what to do, a lot of different things, but we're going to be talking about how kids and we all escalate, and how there's no teaching that can be done actually when everybody has what Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson talk about of flipping your lid, which is when your thinking is offline, when that happens, what to do during that time, and then how to make take that information that happened in that situation and then try and practice better skills so that doesn't happen again. Okay, so that's just next session in a nutshell, but please, Barbara@synergyautismcenter.com is my email. Email me if you need anything, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.